Good evening, and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for Monday, January 5th, 2015. Happy New Year to all. Tonight, we have two public hearings on our agenda. The first one is a continuation from our last meeting in the end of December, which is a public hearing for, actually beginning December, excuse me. Public hearing to the site plan review with special permit for 1514 Gorham Street. We did receive a letter today from Attorney James Flood, who's the lawyer for the project, requesting that the application be withdrawn without prejudice. Attorney Flood, you're here on behalf of the applicant? That's correct?
Correct, Mr. Chairman, right. Yes, we're requesting it be withdrawn at this time. The parties are working together. I would anticipate there'd be another proposal before the board, probably in the near future, but it'll be all residential, it'll be on a much less dense scale. So they're working on it. Very similar to what you suggested, Mr. Boyle.
Okay. What's the request of the board for the applicant to withdraw without prejudice?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw the proposal without prejudice.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The matter is withdrawn. Thank you, Counselor. Good luck. The next matter we have for a public hearing is a special permit at 22 Humphrey Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to an application by ZR Realty Trust seeking special permit approval at 22 Humphrey Street. The proposal consists of the construction of a new single-family dwelling on the subject property without meeting lot width requirements. The proposal project is located in the traditional single-family zoning district and requires special permit approval from the Lowell Planning Board under Section 5.1.10 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, representing Ryan Rourke, who is trustee of ZR Realty Trust. Ryan is no stranger to the Centerville section of the city. He was born and brought up on 11th Street, and his family for many years ran a market on 6th and Manning's Liquor Store on Bridge Street. Ryan presently runs a construction and property management business and owns the property at 22 Humphrey Street. In the past 5 years, he has advised me that he's renovated and sold approximately 10 properties in the Centerville area, and he recently renovated the property at 236 Methuen Street and also the existing building at 22 Humphrey Street. But he's desirous to split up the lot at 22 Humphrey Street and establish two new lots. One lot would maintain the existing home, and the other lot would be for a new single-family residential dwelling. Since both proposed lots would have frontage of 50 feet, which is less than 80% of the required frontage of 70, which would amount to 56 feet required, we're before you tonight to request a special permit to waive the required lot width, to allow us to proceed further on this matter before the City of Lowell Board of Appeals. I think you people can appreciate that's what we have to do. Any decision on the home to be built or the maintaining of the existing building would rest with the Board of Appeals. So the waiver is the only matter before you tonight. I think you're well aware of the background for Section 5.10. It's to present crazy-shaped lots. These lots are straight. The original subdivision plan was established in 1882, and we're 6 feet short on the frontage. So that's why we're here tonight. With the submission to the board, I have included the original subdivision plan for the whole area, which I said goes back to 1882. I've given you a copy of the plan from the assessor's database, which shows the surrounding neighborhood. I've also given you a copy of a plan from the city engineer's office, which shows all lots on Humphrey Street. I've given you a copy of the deed into the trust, and I've also given you a copy of a picture of a proposed building to be constructed on the vacant lot. As I stated in my project narrative, we're desirous of creating two separate lots along the same lines the same description as the original subdivision plan going back to 1882. So the lots would be split based on those exact same lines. As you can see from the deed, the property came in as 2 separate lots, based on the same description from the 1882 subdivision. The chain of title from the original conveyance out was all based on that 1882 subdivision, and all based on 2 lots. Now, and also, if you look at the plan from the assessor's office, from the engineer's office, all lots on the same side of the street as 22 Humphrey Street are the same size as the proposed lots. 22 Humphrey Street is the only one with a large lot on that side of the street. All the others run from 7,500 square feet down. So this is not something new to the neighborhood. If this request is allowed, we will then have to proceed before the Board of Appeals to create the 2 lots with the following variances. As to Lot 5, which is the new lot, we'll seek a variance for lot frontage to allow the construction of a new single-family home, but we will meet all other dimensional requirements of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance in the construction of the new home. As to Lot 6, which is the existing home, once again, to maintain the existing home, we'll need a variance on lot frontage, and we'll also need a variance for the minimum front yard setback because it's pre-existing, and also the side yard setback because it's pre-existing. But everything was there, it's been there, the house was built in 1925, so there's nothing we can do that. As far as city comments are concerned, we have no problem with them. As I did on Burnside Street, and as this board did on Burnside Street, you conditioned the approval that if it's approved by the Board of Appeals, that we'd have to come back with the plan of the house that was approved back to this board for further approval and comment. So we have no problem if you wanted to condition it. But all we're here tonight is to give us the chance to go to the Board of Appeals, let them make the decision, and I'd ask that you favorably act on this because I think, as you can appreciate, 5.1.10 was not passed to handle a lot of this. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and so is Mr. Rourke. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Flood. Anybody like to speak in favor of the application? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none at this time. Anybody want to speak in opposition? Just come to the microphone, please. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Mark McNiff, 60 Humphrey Street, Lowell. A few years ago, I put a garage on my house. I had to jump through hoops to get that garage put on. After paying some guy some Sunday morning as he showed up, come to find out that the guy worked here, he made me move the garage in 5 feet off the property line. So what's to say I don't tear my house down and put in a strip of condos now? We're all just trying to, live down there. We all have to live by the rules, but it seems only certain people have to live by the rules. We all had to move our stuff in. We couldn't put up any other structures. We all had to jump through hoops. When does it stop? If the lot's undersized, why should he be allowed to put up another house? We all have to live down there. We all have to be neighbors. But if there's not enough room for another house, why do we have to put up with it? When does it stop in this city? Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name is Bernie. My name is Bernie Clancy. I live in 232 Methuen Street, which is 2 lots down from Humphrey Street, where this proposal is going to take place or attempts to take place. I've been in Centerville all my life. I lived in 232 Methuen Street for almost 40 years. I grew up on Ludlam Street. So I just want to make that clear. A lot of people here have been in this area for a long time. Hopefully you have the petition that I forwarded among the people here.
Yes, we see it.
Just a brief summary. Just want to say the proposal will add congestion to an already congested area. parking problems on this narrow street, and you really got to drive down Humphrey Street, especially on a night like tonight when there's snow, will increase dramatically. In fact, the front yard of this proposal, 2 front yards, will become a parking lot or parking area, whichever you prefer. The proposal will deny not 1, but 2 potential homeowners of their rights under the zoning code to street frontage. So we're talking about 2 potential people that are coming in here. The proposal will set a precedent in the area. There are several lots on Humphrey and Beacon Street that have similar square footage. If this proposal passes, the owners of these properties will have a green light to putting up properties on their property. So if you look at my backyard, you could conceivably see 8 houses down on a block where there's no street. 22 Humphrey Street has existed as a single-family lot since 1925. The proposal seeks to take a zoning-compliant lot and convert it into 2 non-compliant lots. In 1882, zoning requirements were not as they are now. This proposal seeks to return to these requirements and ignore the current standards. My question, does this proposal entail a change in use from an historically single-family lot into 2 single-family lots, and as such, negate 1882 conditions and require the petitioner to meet current zoning restrictions? 1882. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clancy. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
My name is Al Rushlow. I live at 10 Humphrey Street, right where the house wants to be built. Basically, if he built that house there, I'd be shaking hands with my next-door neighbor right out my window. And I believe 1982, the laws were different for home lots and stuff. This is 2015. We now have new zoning laws in the city, and I believe we should abide by them. Plus, like everybody else has said, the traffic on that street in that area is relentless during the winter, especially when there's snow on the sides of the street, very limited parking. If people park in front of my house, I have a very hard time exiting my driveway or entering into my driveway. I believe the building should stay just the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Jean. I live at 38 Humphrey Street, at 36 Humphrey Street. I have a 2-family house that I currently reside in. I have to agree with my fellow neighbors. The congestion on the street is unbearable at times, especially during the winter time. The parking is very limited. There are many houses on the street that don't have their own personal driveways. Therefore, parking is up and down the street, bumper to bumper at times, due to a lack of condition. Also, we need to remember that we're also on a bus route, so there's a lot of traffic on the street. We also are connecting street between Methuen and Lowell, so there's a lot of traffic that use that byway to go from one part of the city to the next. I think adding additional traffic to that area, additional construction, additional congestion is going to be detrimental to the area itself, as well as for, our children. I have small children, that live there. I don't want them to be afraid of going out in front of my house and not being able to cross the street because there's so much traffic going on in that area. I think that's basically all I have to say. I hope that you take these in consideration. Oh, and the gentleman behind me that spoke about the zoning laws, again, I reiterate that. They were 1825. That was a different time zone, a different time period. We didn't have the congestion that we have now. The area was more probably residential, probably not as busy with traffic. And I think we need to, take that into consideration also.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak in opposition?
John Lindsay, 17 Humphrey Street. Again, the same concerns are all the neighbors around there. the street is very congested, and right now, I actually called the highway department because the street has a sinkhole in the middle. Now, if you bring in these construction trucks to build this new house, you're just going to tear up the road even more, and you're just going to make the neighborhood worse for everybody around there. And like they said, a law that was built in 1825, they were driving, horse and buggies back then. They're not cars, they're not semis, And again, our street is a pass-through. Cars race up it from Methuen Street and then skid to a stop from Broadway. So I think if you put another house in there, you're just going to make things worse by adding more cars. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anybody else want to speak? Okay, we do have the letter that was submitted to us. All the board members have a copy of that. That was given to us, I believe it was by Mr. Clancy. And we have a few other people who signed off against that, so we will put that in with our minutes for the meeting. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any of the board members if they have any questions. Joe, I have one question. Attorney Flood said he had no problem with city comments. I don't remember receiving any of those.
They should have been included in your packet. I can hand out a copy if you'd like.
Anybody else?
City
No?
comments?
Yeah, do you get city
No,
comment?
I didn't get anything.
We didn't get him. So, he's a step ahead of us. So. Sure, I'll take, yeah, okay.
Oh, jeez.
Basically what we had before, yeah.
Hey, Joe, I think it would be faster if you ran off one more copy. If we can share here. got this one now.
We'll leave this one out here. Thank you.
What's that?
Mr. Chairman, may I,
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Fischett.
in a, did a site visit as part of the process, and part of what we're evaluating is the neighborhood character and issuing any kind of a special permit under the planning board. And I know it was alluded to by Attorney Flood as far as the size of most of the lots on that side of the street, and looking at the homes that are along that side of the street, and they're, matter of fact, they're all 50-foot frontage with parking on the side of the home, and that's what we would expect to see on the remaining home, that's the existing home and the new home that would be built. And actually, I was surprised to see this is a traditional single-family, and I know and when Mr. Boyle was part of planning and development when they went through the existing conditions, but I see there are a couple two-families in that traditional single-family on the same size lots with 50-foot frontage, which I found, obviously, that's very taxing on a neighborhood, those existing structures, I have to say. And that's where you see predominantly parking on the street. But the single-family homes around this particular property all fit exactly what's being proposed here. And that's part of what we're looking at as the criteria of the neighborhood character. And it's not to deviate from it to a point where it changes the character of the neighborhood. And that's not what we're looking to do, obviously. So as I look at what's being proposed here, and obviously the structure, how it sits on the lot, the landscaping, the parking, and this is all what DPD has actually, we were looking at, is what the recommendations from DPD are all criteria that the Zoning Board of Appeals would look at. And then, which we've done with another project, we did require that it come back here for final sign-off from the planning board as to how this is actually going to sit on the lot and how it's going to fit into the neighborhood, because I think that is crucial. On the opposite side of the street, I have to say, and I did take some photos, there are some larger lots, similar in nature as far as the homes on the one section where it's 50-foot frontage and having the lot on the side of the home. I think that those are, for the most part, more of an exception. I think when we're looking at the existing conditions, if in fact that would have defined the neighborhood, this probably would have turned into a suburban single-family zone versus a traditional single-family zone, and that's kind of what and could drive a lot of that as far as how it looks as it sits today. So certainly from what's being proposed, and I think it's valid as far as concerns about parking, on-street parking, off-street parking, and we would be looking that would have to comply with what's required, and to have the driveways on the lot have off-street parking, not on-street parking. I believe that's what's being proposed here.
Right.
Similar to the homes that currently exist with the driveway. These are the homes right next to what's being proposed, and they're exactly what's being proposed.
But that's what I said. I mean, both lots do meet the minimum square footage for that zone.
Correct.
They're both over 7,000 square foot.
And I think that's important to recognize. It's not a smaller lot. The lot meets the zoning requirement. It exceeds it by, I believe, the minimum lot requirement is 7,000.
They're both over, 177.
So we have one lot at 7,704, and the other lot is 7,812. So it exceeds the minimum lot size. What we're looking at is the frontage. And how does that fit into the neighborhood? And are we cramming this in? Is it something that doesn't fit in? It really is consistent with what, if you take a photo, take a look at that street, and you look at the streetscape of that side of the street, that's exactly what it looks like. It's not going to change.
Right.
It's not going to change the look of that street. And we are looking at, again, off-street parking. The new lot is going to meet all of the setback requirements.
Correct.
The variances you're seeking, they exist as we talk today.
They exist.
They
They're
exist as we,
pre-existing,
and they exist on every home that's on that side of the street right now.
except for the frontage.
Right,
Correct.
exactly. No.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, this is really a first step.
Right.
To get to the Board of Appeals, and
Right.
I think you people understand the purpose of that section, so.
exactly.
Right,
So,
right,
again, we like to see that. I mean, this is your neighborhood. Want to see you come out, concerned, make sure you have the best project that can fit into there. But I think what's being proposed is fairly consistent with what we're looking at in his meeting the spirit of 5.1.10 of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance. And I would be looking at, we've all viewed the recommendations from the planning department. I think they all would be consistent what we would be looking for, and that would be certainly to see the off-street parking on the plan, the elevations of, I mean, it's nice that we have the photo, but the actual elevations of the property to be
We have
built.
plans too.
And identify, I noticed some trees have been cut on the property, but identifying some of the mature trees that would stay. And I think a landscape plan, again, when we're looking at making this type of, granting this type of a special permit, we are looking at really how is that going to aesthetically fit on that lot. So we'd want to look at a landscaping plan as well.
Well, that would be, we'd submit that to the Board of Appeals.
Exactly.
But I do have building plans, but it was like 12 pages, and I didn't want to make,
Yeah, and I understand, this is the
At this
first
point.
step here, going to the ZBA and then coming back here for final sign-off from what the Zoning Board of Appeals may or may not approve. I can't speak for
Absolutely.
them as well.
Absolutely, I understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Lowell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go over the permitting process here. The applicant is proposing, it needs zoning relief from both this board and from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and he's looking for different things from both boards. What he's going before the ZBA for is for issues of setbacks, where they're going to put the house, issues for the lot frontage. Is the lot too narrow to put a house on or not? Can the house be put on a lot, on this lot as proposed, and provide the adequate parking, provide necessary setbacks to be consistent with the neighborhood? These are the questions that, if this matter goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals, are going to be taken up there. A lot of the discussion that's happened tonight, the congestion on the street, the closeness of the buildings, the neighborhood character, even how long people have been living in the neighborhood. These are things that are very commonly discussed at the Board of Appeals level and would be taken up there when the applicant appears before them, should he appear before them, at which point he would have to submit plot plans showing where the house is going to be, where the parking's going to be, you know, all of these other things. That is the permit he would have to get in order to build in order to build this new house and split these lots. What he's looking for from us tonight is a special permit for from an element of the zoning that was created in order to prevent the creation of strangely shaped lots. The city has a minimum lot frontage requirement in its zoning. What the zoning code says is that if any part of that lot is less than 80% the width of that frontage, in other words, if the lot gets narrower as it goes back from the street, they need to get a special permit. The purpose of that is you sometimes see developers come in and they try to squeeze one more house into their project by drawing these crazy lot lines so that two houses next to each other, their lot lines end up looking like a map of Vermont and New Hampshire, with somebody owning somebody else, part of somebody else's backyard, and somebody else owning part of somebody else's front yard, so that they're jogging the lot lines. And this amendment was put into the zoning in order to give the city, to give this board some review over how those lines are being drawn. I have a number of questions about this project, but they all go to these issues which would be before the Zoning Board of Appeals. How this lot line is drawn, how this lot line is proposed to be drawn perpendicular straight back from the street. That is not only very rational, it is also entirely consistent with the character of the neighborhood. Whatever issues there are with this project, they go to how or even whether the houses can be put onto the lots in a manner that is pleasing to the eye, not disruptive to the neighborhood, allows for adequate parking. And that's all. Those are all the issues to be discussed in the, before the ZBA when they go for the variance. I think that where we have these projects which have this one small section of the zoning that's very specific on this narrow question before us, and then the actual project itself and its merits and its substance and the details of how something is to be built is before the ZBA, that we should act on the narrow question and allow the ZBA to act on the broader question. That's really what they specialize in, is exactly these concerns that that neighbors are bringing forward about, you know, these questions that it is really good for you to come out on these things. Not only is it because it's important that you have a right to make your voice heard, but you know your neighborhood better than anybody else. And these little details that you can bring to the discussion can be extremely important. And that is what happens at ZBA hearings. So where this project does require such a hearing and requires applications before the ZBA, which must meet a more stringent standard than a special permit application before us, I think we should only answer the narrow question about how that lot line is being drawn and whether having less than 80% of the width is derogatory to the character of the neighborhood. I don't think whatever the issues there are here, I don't think they have to do with how the lot line is drawn. I think that we should do what we did on a similar project last time, which is give our approval on this very narrow question and then have the ZBA take up the substantive issues. Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boyle. Mr. Balovich?
My fellow board member said most everything that is right. We only have to focus on the width of the lots and the way they're subdivided. And it's obviously consistent with the 1882 plan. And all those houses live by the 1882 plan, and this would be consistent. I think the other issues of parking and neighborhood issues need to be addressed to the Board of Appeals. So I have no problem with this.
Okay. Mr. Lockhart?
Yeah, I agree with all the comments that have been spoken by my colleagues regarding this project. The 50 feet is consistent with what's in the neighborhood, and certainly neighborhood character, whenever we look at a project like this, is very important, and this really won't change it. What I think is important here is more definitive plans that will be forthcoming. If you drive by there, if this is indicative of the parking issues that have been brought up here and complained about, you know, they're obviously legitimate, and the congestion part of this is a concern.
We'll show
There's
that.
a dirt driveway that somebody's created to park a car up on the left-hand side of this existing house. And I assume that the garage on the right is what they use. It's just a little odd. And so I think you really have to define. Oh, there's one over here.
No, he is the plot plan that was given to us by the applicant. He is,
Yeah, over here.
Oh,
There-
he's looking to the right, yeah.
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 There's not one back
No,
here.
no, it's to the right, yeah. Yeah.
But there's a dirt driveway right here. I just think more definitive plans will alleviate some of the concern here.
Well, once, I mean, if you people approve it, then of course we'll go to the additional expense to prepare a proper
Yeah, I
plan
think
to
that's,
go to
that's,
the
I
zoning
think
board of
that's
appeals.
an important step.
But
I
this
have
is
no
the first
big
step,
issue here.
so.
That's all I have, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay, the letter we got from staff says basically if what they would request after looking at the site from Planning and Development Department would be the proposed house location associated parking should be provided. Therefore, for this project to go in, on both lots 5 and 6, they would have to show us 2 regulated parking spaces off-street, which is allowed, what everybody else in the neighborhood is supposed to have. So therefore, that'd be conforming to the neighborhood. And they would have to show that on a new set of plan. They have to show the parking for both lots, needs to be reviewed in order to be assessed, because if they don't have the parking plan, then it would not be allowed. So they have to show 2 off-street parking spots. And also, elevations of all 4 sides, so they'd show what the new house would look like. Try to keep any existing trees that they could. Any sidewalk or curbing that was removed would have to be put back up, and they'd need a driveway by vertical granite curbing. Driveway permit would be required from the city engineer. They'd have to show a proposed landscaping plan. So to be consistent with the neighborhood, they'd need 2 off-street parkings, which is required by everybody up there. They need 7,000 square feet, which indicated they have 7,812 and 7,704, so they meet that requirement. The only requirement that came in 2 years ago is, as they indicated, so they can't have a sliver lot in the back, you need 80% of what the front is, and actually the back is bigger than what the front lot is. So the only thing they're missing is approximately, for the special permit they're requesting for us, would be 6 feet wider in the front. So if they had 6 feet wide in the front on both lots, they would not even have to come before the planning board, they'd just go before the zoning board of appeals. So what would happen is, if this board did approve it, the matter would have to go to the zoning board of appeals. They would have to get the minimum frontage relief required. They would have to get the minimum front yard relief required. They would have to get the minimum side yard relief required, and this would all be for lot 6, because all of it except for the minimum front yard would be approved, and the minimum rear yard would be the same. So what they have to do is, where the house is closer within the side yard, which is already existing, which a lot of the houses up there have, which means they don't have 10 total of 25 some from the side yard. So the only thing that they're looking for, instead of having 50 feet in the frontage, they need 56 to 6 feet short. Besides that, they would not have to come before us. And as indicated, so what we have to look at is, are the other houses on that street all 7,000 square feet? Do they have the 2 parking spaces per each house? To confirm to most of them. And would this 7,000 square foot new lot be consistent with the 7,000 square feet lots that are in the neighborhood? Whether we vote for it or not, there's no such thing as setting precedent when it comes to land and a piece of property in any city, in any state, and anywhere in the whole United States. The land courts are very precise on that, and we've had cases that came back to us time and time again saying each set of land is particular on its own, and therefore, if we allow something to be done on 10 Main Street, they do not have the same right to do it on 12 Main Street, because it's a different lot and everything else. So the precedent factor is not something there. If we do approve this, that they can come in and say, you approved it, therefore you have to approve this. That's not true. We had a case in court that went up. The court and the judge says that's not true. Each set's by itself. So if you allow one project to be built, does not mean you have to allow the other project to be built. So the question that they have is just, is the 7,000 square feet the same what's in everybody else in the neighborhood? Is it 2 parking spaces what everybody else has in the neighborhood? And that's the requirement we have, is to make sure that they don't have 56 feet in the front and have 10 feet in the back. And that was the purpose of the new zoning that went into effect 3 years ago because of 2 houses that were built that way and up in the Highlands. And after they saw what happened and went before the city council, and they changed the zoning. So obviously, it doesn't matter what the zoning was back in 1812 or 1815 or back in 1995 for that matter. They have to conform what's been approved before the city council sets it 3 years ago. So the only hardship they're looking for us is approximately not have an extra 6 feet wide by the front of the driveway. And if we deny it, then it doesn't get before the zoning board of appeals. If we approve it, the next step would be before the zoning board of appeals. If they deny him for any one of the 4 reliefs they're requesting, the project is dead. If they approve it, then it'd still have to come back to us for final approval. If we set conditions on it to indicate that they meet all the required conditions that the City of Lowell Planning and Development staff is requested by us to make sure that they have the parking spaces, that they have the curb cuts, that they have the setbacks as required as indicated on the new lot. The new lot itself will not have any, that will meet all the side yard and the rear yard setback. They're not asking for any relief under those, so this be the relief under lot 6. So that's basically what their request is before us. So that's all I have to say at this point in time. Any of the board members have any follow-up? If not, what's...
I would just like to add for clarity's sake, because I realize this is needlessly complicated. Welcome to the world of zoning. Our action tonight would not be approving the width of these lots. We would not be making a decision to approve the width of the lots. The approving a lot with that width, that is what they'd be applying to the zoning board of appeals for. What we're looking at this other section, is about the shape of the lots. Okay? They, not only would we not be granting a variance saying lots this width are, okay, go ahead and build on them. We would not even be making a judgment for the zoning board to look at about whether or not we think these lots are sufficiently wide. We're simply being asked about the shape and how the sidelines are being drawn. Okay? Like I said, I realize this is very difficult to, the distinction there is a very fine one to understand. I just wanted to make sure it's clear what we are and are not doing tonight and what we are and are not considering tonight.
Any other board members have any follow-up? If not, what's the request of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the request for the special permit, adopting the recommendations of the memo dated December 24th from Department of Planning and Development, incorporating their suggestions into the board as part of our conditions of the approval, and that pending approval from the ZBA, that the final plan would come back to the planning board for approval.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and seconded by Mr. Lockhart. All board members in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, chair votes yes, so our recommendation would be approved, and the matter from here goes to the zoning board of appeals. Do you have a timetable on that, Mr. Flood?
No, I don't. I mean, we have to have more plans done.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had an idea how soon that would be.
Definitely.
Okay, so
Thank you
next
very
meeting will be
much.
at the zoning board of appeals.
Right.
Good night, thank you. Moving along with the agenda.
Just one question, we will be notified about any further action
Yes.
as a
Yes,
butters?
yes.
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 Zoning board of appeals, that
Correct.
should be advertised and posted as well, right?
But we will be contacted.
Yes.
Right, you'll
Everybody
get a
with-
very similar notice.
Okay, moving along under old businesses, we have none at this point in time. Do any follow-up from any of the board members from the boards that they're on at this time?
Yes, I have a couple of items relative to the historic board activity.
Okay,
Recognizing that we need to develop a and create a broader community dialogue, we've done a couple of things. One, well, primarily, I just want to talk about a recent meeting we had with bankers and credit unions here in the city. Mr. Frechette was there with president of Washington Savings Bank as well, to get their feedback on historic board activity so we can improve what we do as we go forward. It was a very valuable informational session. We're calling them listening sessions, and we plan to have another one in January with another group yet to be defined and scheduled. It's important that we continue listening to the community so we can improve what we're doing. We will be more proactive in our outgoing activities, and we're going to be working with the Lowell National Historic Park, the Department of Planning and Development, the LDFC to try to uncover some new financing opportunities for businesses. We're going to try to create, or we will be creating, technical sessions for business owners and property owners so they can improve their property and promote themselves and yet adhere to historical standards that we have in our regulations. A lot of activity going on as we enter the new year, and I do want to thank Councilor Samaras for his support and guidance in getting us this far, and we look forward to continue working with him to define a roadmap, so to speak, for 2015. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Anybody else? Follow up? No? Joe, anything from staff?
We're going to have Family Dollar in before you at the next meeting. They made their full application. You may remember they submitted a pre-application a few months ago.
Was that the one on Chelmsford Street?
Correct, off of Chelmsford Street on Nottingham, yep. So
Chelmsford.
they're going to be
The one on
coming
Chelmsford, yeah.
at the next meeting.
Okay. And the next meeting, that's a Thursday night, because 2 weeks from tonight's the Martin
Right,
Luther King
20
holiday, right?
That's correct.
22nd, I think.
Yeah, 22nd, okay. So what do they need, just site plan, or are they looking for any special permit, or just site plan?
Just site plan with this board, and then it'll be a special permit and variances from the ZBA.
Joe, is that the project that had the retention pond?
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right.
And it
They
still
found a better
features
way-
that.
Pardon me?
It still features that.
It features that, yeah. It's a good way of putting it, features it.
That is 21 East Side.
There is some contamination on the property. I'm not aware of the full status of it. I'll have to contact the environmental officer. We're having a staff meeting tomorrow to go over the project.
Anything else that we know that's on that night, or that's the only project that we can see at this point in time?
That should be the only project, so I think we'll be able to focus a lot of time on it.
Okay. Any board members have any other follow-up? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. We are adjourned. Good night. Thank you, everyone.